Cool. All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Just trying to set up here in the side of my house because right now it is really windy. So try to do it in the garage and it sounds a bit of like a wind tunnel. Hope everyone's getting online. What a great service yesterday. Man, so many great things in that service. I am falling in love with the national anthem of New Zealand. Quite a few references to God in it. I know with Canada we have like one sentence and it still gets fought over and discussed, but wow, what a powerful anthem. We're going to continue on this morning with Max Lucado's book, Anxious for Nothing, Finding Calm in a Chaotic World. And we found ourselves talking about before we lashing out in fear that we would look up in faith. And so we're going to continue on in that same strain, that same flow, and we'll just pick it up. Max talks about this. He says, in his fine book, The Dance of Hope, Bill Frey remembers the day he tried to pull a stump out of the Georgia dirt. He was 11 years old at the time. One of his chores was the gathering of firewood for the small stove and fireplace of the homestead. He would search the woods for stumps of pine trees that had been cut down and chop them into kindling. The best stumps were saturated with resin and therefore would burn more easily. One day I found a large stump in an open field near the house and tried to unearth it. I literally pushed and pulled and crowbarred for hours, but the root system was so deep and large, I simply couldn't pull it out of the ground. I was still struggling when my father came home from his office, spotted me working, and came over to watch. I think I see your problem, he said. What's that? I asked. You're not using all your strength, he replied. I exploded and told him how hard I'd worked for how long. No, he said, you're not using all your strength. When I cooled down, I asked him what he meant. And he said, you haven't asked me to help you yet. This business of anxiety management is like pulling stumps out of the ground. Some of your worries have deep root systems. Extracting them is hard work. In fact, it may be the toughest challenge of all, but you don't have to do it alone. Present the challenge to your father and ask for his help. Will he solve the issue? Yes, he will. Will he solve it immediately? Maybe. Or maybe part of the test is an advanced course in patience. This much is sure. Contagious calm will happen to the degree that we turn to him. Like how we present our requests to God, and we have to trust that God is going to help. And I remember saying this a couple of days ago. Sometimes God says yes, God sometimes says no, and a lot of times he says wait and be patient. There's a process, and it's like when you see these people that work at a forge, at a blacksmith, and I was watching a show on an American History Channel called Forged in Fire, and these contestants are told to make knives or swords or whatever it is, and you look at the amount of work that they can do in such a short period of time, but as soon as they feel like if their swords or their knives are ready, they have to do this thing called the quench. And when they have to heat their metal till it's white hot. And sometimes these swords are so big because They're replicas. They need help doing it. And so, they ask around, and like they've never done this kind of work before. But at the end, when they finally get all the help that they need, the majesty, the majestic blades that these guys make are absolutely phenomenal, and they're sharp, and they're usable. And I think that's kind of reminds me of the Bible. We are blades to be sharpened by each other. But sometimes we too need to go to the forge together and see that kind of discipleship happen. And it might be probably the hardest work that we'll ever do. It's hard being told by a brother or a sister in Christ that something that you're doing, something that maybe you've always done, isn't good for you. I had this one lady in our church, and there was more than a few times where she would step out of line. She would say things out in a joking manner, but it was quite hurtful. And I remember one time we had to sit down with her and some of her friends and just say, this isn't God's heart for you. This is not good for you. You've done this so long, but it's time to go to the forge, and we have to pound this out. Like, it's got to get sharpened out. And that's part of what discipleship is. If you were the same Christian like a year ago or 5 years ago, there's something seriously wrong with that. You should constantly be sharpened. You should constantly be going to the Father and saying, God, like, I got anxieties with these 5 things. And I really trust that God is going to work those things out. He might not take all of them away, but at least he'll give you a strategy or a plan to deal with them. Well, we are coming into the final days of our lockdown of level 4. I think actually it's by tonight or whatever. And we move into a new level 3. And this is another thing that we got to go to God saying, God, help us have the strength and discernment. How do we live? How do we move? And just know that people here, our staff, South City, we're loving you. We're praying for you guys. We're excited for you. And remember, you're not to do this alone. So if you need help, present your request to God and to us. Let us know. All right. God bless you, and we'll be connecting with you this week. Take care. And we'll see you tonight at 8 o'clock. Okay, bye for now.